Spigen is one of the most prolific case makers out there, with extensive case lineups for just about every phone on the market. But with so many options, it can be difficult to know which one is best. With that in mind, we bought every Spigen case on the market. Today we're going to do a deep dive and let you know which ones are worth getting. First up is the Spigen Thin Fit. This is the company's most basic case, and it's very thin and minimal and super light. It weighs in at just 25 grams. It's not exactly the thinnest case on the market, but it's up there. You can't tell by looking at it, but it actually uses two materials. There's a harder polycarbonate in the back, which gives it a more rigid texture, and then TPU on the sides, which makes it easier to put on your phone. The buttons on this case are slightly raised, so they're easy to find, and they have nice action, although they're not entirely covered, so you might have some debris or grime slip in there into your phone. Being a thin case, it doesn't offer much in the way of drop protection, but it does have Spigen's air cushion technology, which is essentially a small air gap in the corners to protect from particularly gnarly drops right on the corner of your device. Of course, it also has raised lips around the screen and the camera lenses to keep those safe too. The matte material on the back of this case doesn't show fingerprints, and it adds just a little bit of grip to make it more comfortable to hold. However, the color options are extremely limited. For the S24, it only comes in black and dark green, and for other phones, it might only come in black. That said, it is very affordable, typically costing about 15 to 20 bucks. Next up is the Spigen Liquid Air. It's another thin and minimal case, but with a slightly more interesting design. It has this triangular pattern on the back, and it typically comes in much more interesting colors. Again, it's super light and weighs about 30 grams, and it has a fully TPU build, which makes it a little bit easier to install. The entire case is super flexible. The finish is still matte, which means that it will reject most fingerprints, and the grooves on the back aren't particularly deep, so they're quite easy to clean. It has the same buttons, the same air cushion technology, the same raised lips around the screen and the camera lenses, and all of the basic features you'd expect from a phone case. My only complaint about this case is that the TPU material is a little bit slippery. Despite the textured back and the grips on the sides, it's still a little bit more difficult to hold than some other Spigen cases. Still, it's one of their most affordable cases, typically costing 15 to 20 bucks. Next, we're going to talk about Spigen's clear cases, starting with the Ultra Hybrid. This is one of Spigen's most popular cases with lots of colors and design options, including this 01 White edition, which shows the internals of the phone on the back of the device. In terms of the build, it's similar to the Thin Fit with a rigid polycarbonate back and TPU siding, but it's a little bit thicker, weighing in around 30 grams, and you can really feel the extra bulk in your hands. It has the same raised lip around the screen and the same air cushion technology, which you can see a lot more clearly with a thin case like this. But since the back is so much thicker, there's no need for the raised lips around the camera lenses. It does still have raised corners on the back, which help when you put your device right on the table, but it adds a little bit of extra bulk as well. Ultimately, this is just a really nice clear case with good drop protection and lots of design options. Some of them even have magnetic rings if you're getting something like an iPhone case, and it's not too expensive, typically costing around 15 to 20 bucks. Spigen's other clear case is the Liquid Crystal. It's similar, but it has a fully TPU build, kind of like the Liquid Air. This makes it more flexible and a bit thinner and more comfortable to hold. Again, there are some interesting design options, including this glitter version, but as always, you can just get a completely clear version or frosted or a number of different design options. There aren't as many options as the Ultra Hybrid, but there's still some variety in there. Again, it has raised ridges around the screens, the same buttons, raised ridges around the camera lenses this time since the back is thinner. The reason why it feels better to hold than the Ultra Hybrid is because the sides are completely rounded and there's no ridge to catch your fingers on. Ultimately, it might be a little bit less protective. Still, it's a great option and is very affordable, a little bit cheaper than the Ultra Hybrid, typically around 15 bucks. Next, we're going to talk about Spigen's rugged cases. None of these cases are particularly rugged, but they are a little bit more resistant than the rest of Spigen's offerings. The first is the Rugged Armor. It's another slim and light TPU build, weighing a little bit more at 35 grams, and most of that weight is going to come from these thicker bumpers on the corners. Really, apart from that and the name and the carbon fiber texture at the bottom, there's nothing particularly rugged about this case. That said, it does still feel great in the hand. The material itself is a little bit slippery, but there's a different texture on the back and grips on the side that make it more comfortable to hold. The only downside is that it only comes in black, although it is still very affordable like all of Spigen's cases. Next up is another relatively slim rugged case from Spigen called the Optik Armor. Again, it's a TPU build, but it has a polycarbonate camera enclosure, which you can see here. This slides open and closed to keep your lenses protected, and it's a little bit stiff, which is actually good because that way it won't slide open on accident. There are no added corner bumpers on this case for extra drop resistance, but it's still a little bit heavier, around 41 grams. I'm guessing that most of that weight comes from the camera enclosure. This one doesn't feature any grips on the sides, but it has the same textured back as the rugged armor. It's surprisingly comfortable to hold, but again, it's not going to be the most protective. One small pet peeve is that due to the camera enclosure, it wobbles when you put it on the table. Still, there are a few interesting color options available, although it does cost a little bit more, typically around 20 bucks. Finally, we have the Tough Armor. This is Spigen's most rugged case, and it has a TPU build with a rigid PC back. The polycarbonate extends over to the sides of the case and not only on the back, which should afford more drop protection. It's also the only Spigen case with fully covered buttons, which should offer better protection, but I found them a little bit stiff in practical use. The back of the case looks quite plain, and there aren't that many interesting colors to choose from, but it is smooth and feels nice in the hand. Since the polycarbonate texture extends over the sides of the phone, there's no need for extra grip since the polycarbonate texture has grip on its own. This phone also has a kickstand on the back, which can help keep the phone propped up horizontally. It does not work vertically, and to be honest, it's a little bit flimsy. With all these extra features, it weighs in around 51 grams, which is much heavier than other Spigen cases, but still about 10 grams lighter than something like the OtterBox Defender Pro. It is one of Spigen's most expensive cases, but it's still very affordable, around 20 bucks. Now that we've had a look at the full lineup, here are the 3 Spigen cases that we most recommend. First up is the Spigen Liquid Air. It's a very simple case with a nice design on the back. It comes in a lot of different colors, and it should appeal to just about anybody. It's also very affordable and just an easy recommendation. Our next pick is the Ultra Hybrid. It's just a great clear case that ticks all the boxes and comes in a lot of different great designs like this 01 with the internals printed on the back. Ultimately, it just has great drop protection and it's very affordable. Our last pick is the Tough Armor. It's the most protective case that Spigen makes, and although it isn't the most inspiring design, it is just very utilitarian. The grippy texture on the back as well as the kickstand make this a great case if you want to keep your phone safe. That's it for this video, but if you have any questions or want to share your experience with Spigen cases, drop it in the comments below. See ya!